Oh man, hang on. There
It said recording started.
Hi.
Okay.
we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Level Up Conversations. I'm Vanessa.
Woo!
Ooh, the topic for today is a really good one. We'll be talking about Kevin Samuels, the rise and fall of an influencer who passed away recently. And who would like to tackle this first?
I want to go first. I've been waiting for this moment.
Okay.
Now, didn't I tell you women stop believing everything you hear on YouTube? All kinds of things have been coming out. Now, people, of course, his supporters want to try to sweep this under the rug. But this woman came out when he was renting a room.
Yep.
Renting a room. And yeah, okay, it was 2 years old. 2 years. And we know that because he was wearing a mask and it was during the height of COVID. But listen, he was renting a room at 56, not 53, 56
Yep.
years old.
Yep.
Don't believe the hype.
Yep.
So now all the black women can come out from hiding. Come on, come on, come on.
It's safe now.
I know, right? It's safe. You can come back out. But you know what? I will be perfectly honest. I was exchanging messages with my cousin in New York, Emmanuel, and he did show me a clip of Kevin Samuels saying something really nice. And I said to him, I said, it's too bad that he could not keep up being nice to people. And basically what he was, I forgot what it was, but it had something to do with men have to be on top of their game because if you cannot afford yourself, you can't afford another person. You can't afford a woman. And I mean, the way he put it was so eloquent that I'm like, are you serious? Like, what version of him this was? And, I was listening to another creator, and I don't want to say his name because I don't want everyone to run to that creator. But the creator had said that he had a good relationship with Kevin Samuels in the beginning. And in the beginning, when they started the Manosphere, everyone was supposed to take a particular part, and him and Kevin Samuels was doing business plans for men. But Kevin Samuels was starting to get angry with the guys because the business plans just wasn't up to par. And I was telling my cousin, Emmanuel, and I said, when it came to young men, it appears as if Kevin Samuels didn't have any patience. Because I remember when he had men's week, it didn't even last a week. It lasted one day because the young men were calling up and saying, oh, how do you, mess with what is it, rhythms? What is it? What's YouTube do? A logarithms or whatever that is.
Oh, algorithms.
Algorithms. And he had no patience for them. None. And they were asking like really good questions. And then it just went back to the women. And again, I don't want to celebrate his death. Because like I said, I worked in hospice for 10 years. In one of those professions that was good for nothing, according to Kevin Samuels, social worker. I'm no longer a social worker. But I noticed that there were a lot of people dying alone. Men and women die alone. And in fact, the men, a lot of the divorced men, their ex-wives would come back and take care of them. And I remember this one man, before he passed away, he was chipper and we were able to talk and everything. And I told him that he was extremely, extremely lucky to have his ex-wife come to take care of him. I said, because if this was my ex-husband, he would have to leave this earth without my help. That's how, what did they say? Disdain. That's how much disdain I have for my ex-husband. I don't wish him death, but he's not going to leave with my help. And so, And so that just goes to show you that you can, pass at any given time. Just have your affairs in order. And those are the things he should have been speaking to the men about.
Hmm.
You know, plan, have a life insurance plan, even though it's not for life, it's for your demise. I hate that word, demise, but I don't even like to use expiration. But yeah, and so another creator had started saying that, and I'm gonna say his name because he's funny. What is it? The Willie Williams Show. Oh my gosh, he's hilarious. But he just does reactions about certain videos, and now he's going around telling people, hey, you can get an insurance plan for like a few bucks, which is true. I've had my life insurance plan since '89. And so but like I said, all us black women, we can come out from hiding now.
The interesting thing about the news, when the news broke that he passed away, there was a lot of talk in the YouTube streets, like maybe a day or two afterwards, with conspiracy theorists saying, "Oh, he was poisoned. He was such a great influence that he had to be taken down." All this kind of stuff, and I was like, I don't know about that because the report was different. But it's very interesting how um, a lot of people, especially Black women, from what I heard on the YouTube streets, celebrated his death. Um, the breakdown of the manosphere, old footage that they showed of Kevin Samuels, like surfaced on YouTube and stuff. And I watched one interview where he talked about, how he even got into being an influencer, of talking to the men and women about relationships and getting their stuff together. And he actually started off just on somebody else's show. I'm not going to say that person's name, but that's where he had started from. And then eventually branched off on his own when he was doing like image consulting. And then it kind of spiraled into him, being on the mic and talking to folks. So I think it's kind of cool how he came about, but I didn't necessarily agree with the message, like the way he presented the message. He had a lot of good nuggets, but I think overall, the way that he projected himself, um, saying that he's got this, he's got that, as a high value man. And then it's funny because I would watch like TikTok videos of actual high value men saying, Kevin Samuels ain't it. He's not high value. I'll tell you what high value is. And they, would break it down. And I was like, wow, that's wild. So it's a shame that he's gone, but it is what it is.
And the other creator was saying that, the black men, they didn't want to hear about how to do a business plan. They didn't want to hear about how to run your own business. So that's when he started speaking derogatory about black women. And then the other creator was like, yeah, this is not for me. I got to go. Even though the other creator still called women bitches and hoes.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I can't even take him sometimes. Actually, what I did was I removed anyone from the manosphere off my like YouTube suggestions because I just can't take it. It's just pure garbage. Because they still calling women bitches and hoes, but these are the same women that they go back to. Like you talk about women, but yet you're not gay, so that means you're still going back to a woman.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
Joe, you've been awfully quiet.
You know what? I'm just like taking it in and listening to everything. And, when it comes to him, I'm just going to say it is what it is. Whatever happened, happened. And I mean, God knows best. I do think maybe he found something that he felt like got him more famous and popular, and like probably just got him more money and all that other stuff. Although I don't know so much about the money thing, because then on the flip side of that, you hear about him having like ex-wives and estranged from his children and only having $1,000 to his name when he passed away. But at the same time, on the flip side, it's like, oh well, he got so famous and rich off of it. So I don't really, we wouldn't know. But
yeah, we're never going to know exactly what happened. And I don't believe that his mother will allow for the toxicology report to be given. But according to the police report, the woman that he was with, he just
Mhm.
met her
Mhm.
and she stayed the night.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So there's another thing. I mean, and it's been a lot of stuff swirling that you know what? And I will be honest, I hadn't watched him for long. I watched like 3 shows and I couldn't take any of that.
I
And I just started watching what, not 6 months ago. So but a lot of even his supporters were saying that he advocated being with women of the night
Hmm.
because they were less um you didn't have to deal with them. You know, you do what you do and get rid of them.
So my thought process with that is this. Um, the problem with this kind of person is the fact that a lot of times people's perceptions and people's thoughts and ideologies come from their own experiences as well. They come from their own environment and upbringing and experiences because you don't know what you don't know sometimes, right? And you can only know what you maybe you've experienced or seen or heard or whatever. Now, if we put that into perspective and we're talking a man who was married and divorced and estranged from his children, I can see where he might have had some sort of like issues as far as like relationships were concerned. There probably was like a lot of maybe anger, bitterness, like
Hmm.
and you know what I mean? If I put that on top of that and I see somebody who's struggling and trying to find a niche where he's going to be able to like center himself and make something out of himself as a man and not being able to, because when they talked about he used to talk about men and that didn't take traction and then he started talking about women, you can tell he was searching, he was looking for a way to like get himself together to become something, right? So if I put all of that together, it does make sense for him to say, be with a woman of the night because you don't have to deal with them. Because a regular, maybe a regular woman who you have to deal with is going to want you to be somebody, to do something, to take care of yourself, take care of a household, take care of the kids. And when I say take care, I
Hmm.
don't even mean financially necessarily. Maybe that along with other things. So it's almost like it's easier because he I don't feel like was at the place where he felt like he had reached it, like he had made it in himself. I don't think he was comfortable and happy with himself as a person. And that's why it would make sense to say be with the woman of the night, because then that's like one less problem. Get what you need to get out of it.
Yeah, and I agree. He wasn't happy with himself. That's why he presented this persona,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of being a high value man. He was what's he, a chemical engineer, and that was a lie.
Mhm.
A
That
lot.
was a lie.
Yeah.
He never graduated. He dropped out, in fact, and that can be seen for whoever wants to know. Vlad TV, June 4th. He said it from his own mouth when the interviewer was asking him, do you have a chemical engineering degree? And he said no, that
Hmm.
he
So
dropped
so
out.
he dropped out of school, but yet he said women who are educated are problematic.
Right.
You got
Yeah.
to look at it from his own perspective because he is a dropout. He didn't have that education. If he now has to go deal with a woman who is educated, who has her shit together, who's at a certain standard, he already sees that as him maybe being less than her, and he has
Hmm.
a problem with that. So therefore, she has to be the problem. She's problematic. Avoid that woman at all cost. He didn't feel like he was good enough for the woman who was educated and
Mhm.
who had gotten her life together and had certain things. you know if we look at the pieces in his life and we try to look at what he's saying, it's coming
Mhm.
from a place of his own life, his own insecurities. I think that man was very self-aware. He was so self-aware that he was able to look at his life and then basically it's like he was going to therapy in front of the whole world. Unfortunately, these men who are following him, I do think, were very similar or are very similar to him. And so his message resonates with them. It
Mhm.
does because it's easier. It's easier to blame everybody else. It's easier to control everything else on the outside instead of looking at yourself and saying, hey, maybe I need to get an education. Maybe I need to step my game up. Maybe it's not that single mother's fault that she has all these children because a man left her. Maybe I need to take responsibility for not creating single mothers. Instead of
And he divorced his wife, or she divorced him, but no matter how you put it,
he
he
created
made his
single mother,
daughter right.
you
His
know.
daughter was brought up by a single parent.
So then how are you going to be part of the problem? Notice I said part, because I know people are going to come and say like, well, it's not always the man's fault. Okay, but the point is, you were part of this couple where the relationship ended and now there's a single mother. So where then do you get off saying single mothers are not good enough while
And
Right. I
you're
was going to say
father,
that. Hmm.
while you're
he
a
was
single father,
raised by a single mother.
right?
Which is
And
crazy. Black
but
single mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it's like you're a
See?
single father too. So my
Hmm.
thing is like, where do you decide the single mother's the problem, but the single father is okay?
Oh,
Right.
that's because the manosphere doesn't consider men as being single fathers, and
Right.
that's what I
But that
don't
doesn't make any
understand.
sense. Like let's even just like realistically speaking, for every single mother out there, there's a single father. It's like saying like, the left shoe has a problem, but the right shoe doesn't. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. And I feel like a lot of these men out there are the ones who are they're just spewing stuff. But if they just
Yes.
sat down for a second and really thought about it, like common sense, basic, like fundamental, you know? For every single mother out there, there's a single father. If you're going to hold her to a certain standard, you have to hold him to the same standard. She can't be useless and then he's useful. It just doesn't make any sense, you know?
But
And
on the flip side, I blame the women that have called into his show.
Hmm.
Why? Okay, this is the thing I don't understand. You watch the show, you know what it's like, you know how he speaks to women. Why are you calling in?
I
Like
mean,
your call is going
I
to be any different?
I've heard that he used to pay women to appear on his show.
Oh,
And so, I
Really?
mean, again, all this is speculation, and we'll never know. But at the end of the day, if he and I, it's not to make it any better, but I'm just saying somebody somewhere was maybe needed the money, and it's like here's a check. But I 100% agree with you, because to me, if you appear on that show, you must agree with what he stands for and what he's saying. So, I mean, and another thing that really this whole situation is kind of ridiculous, because at the end of the day, like, we are imploding as a Black community. We're fighting
Hmm.
others so much between the men and the women, and it's actually kind of ridiculous. And the thing we're not realizing is at the end of this, like, the Black family is the one that's suffering. The children in the midst of this situation are the ones that are suffering. And I'm not one for like what will people think, but at the same time, like, has anybody ever stopped and considered, like, look outside at all these other how are they looking at us? Like, how are they? I don't know that I've met another like race that their people, like their men, hate them as much as Black people
well,
hate Black people.
I heard that the because there's a Negro manosphere and then there's a white manosphere. I've never watched the white manosphere. I don't think I ever will. But even they've had turncoats in their sphere as well, where one of the guys, came off as alpha, but then they saw something. I forgot what it was, but they had seen something to um that alluded that he wasn't really the person in charge. It was his wife.
And that's the thing. Like, people will come out here and they'll say all kinds of things for the money, for the bag, for the
Hmm.
whatever. But at the end of the day, like, behind the scenes, that man could be going home and somebody else is in charge. And that goes back to what we, like, our podcast, we always talk about. It's always about you as a couple, you in a relationship, what works for you. I feel like our message is always different, because ultimately we always take it back to, you got to think for yourself, you got to do
Hmm.
right for you, and you got to figure out what your dynamic with your partner is. you know. And another thing I really want people to think about is sometimes you got to think about how do you define things, because we can sit here and argue forever about alpha male, but we are probably talking about two different things. We're using the same words, but we're talking about two different things. What is a high value man? What is value? You know what I mean? And what is a high value? Their
Well, his
definition.
definition, Kevin Samuel's definition was like a high value man is a man that makes over 100,000 for 3 consecutive years, and that's considered high value.
Thousand
Now,
for
now I want to say this, okay? Let's be realistic, women. Now, I was born and raised in Harlem, and my daughter's father came from where I lived in the South Bronx. Okay. Now, you're going to be attracted to what's available to you. Now, today, no, I would not be available to men where I grew up from because I've had a lot of experiences and I've done a lot of things, and I can see that even on my own, I will still have more than what they can bring to the table. So I would not go after that man. But when I was, I met my daughter's father when I was 14, he was 16. We got married when I was 18, he was 20, which I don't advise. Because people change, people grow up, and you see things differently. But, was my high school sweetheart. So, and we were together for quite some time. But as I've grown older, I've learned to choose wiser because, again, from my experiences, what I don't want and what I want, and what I can tolerate and what I don't want to tolerate. So I'm just saying to these women, look, let's be realistic, okay? Look at your surroundings, okay? If no one in your neighborhood makes 6 figures legally, you're not going to capture a man that makes 6 figures. And where is this 100,000? Why is that the magic number? I don't get it.
now. See, I hear what you're saying, and I'll even take it a step further. His definition of value was financial,
Yes.
purely because that's all you just said. 100,000, 3 consecutive years. Some people do not consider that value. There's people that have walked away from millions. Okay, so someone else's definition of value is not the money. Some women just want a good man who has a good heart, who is kind, who's a provider, who works hard every day, takes care of his family. You know, that is what value, that is what a high value man is to them, you know?
Right.
Truly, truly, I go back to like, I think the reason why he felt like high value was money. To me, I feel like is because that's what he was struggling with.
Right. Yes.
It goes back to him. I think because that's what he was struggling with, that is what he felt like value was. And then the problem is the message that he was putting out there. Because okay, so how many of his men are how many of the Samuelites are making 100,000 a year for three? How many? Let's be realistic.
Right.
Right?
Those that are making that kind of money are not sitting around spending their time listening to
No.
Kevin
Thank
Samuels.
you. Thank you. So, and actually, I've seen a lot of videos and men who are, you know, who I will say like have made it, let's say, they are against him. They're like, this man is spewing nonsense and these boys are out here eating it up. Value in a man, they're like, is waking up every day and working hard and taking care of your family and protecting your women and this and that and the next. And it's nothing like, so he, I think, catered to a certain type of man who, to me, I think was broken, first of all. Broken, broke, or at least like not on that level of what he considered high value based on his definition. But I really think these men gravitated towards him because it was almost like daddy issues, and
Right.
he filled void in them. You know what I mean? And so they just followed it because, they'd been dealing with so much and society and kind of feeling like, what, I'm not up to par. I'm not what society like considers to be like the standard for a man. And then here comes a man telling them, no, 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 you're not the problem. Society is the problem. The black woman is the problem. You're not the problem. You're just fine. So, I mean, come on. They don't have to change. They don't have to work on themselves. They can all just get together and bash women because women are the problem. And basically, that's what it became. There was no like, get your education, work hard, stop. Before you say like a single mother is the problem, how about you tell these men, work on your relationships, stop creating families with women when you're playing them and then you walk away, like things like that. Then you want to talk about women over 35, like what is this nonsense?
Oh, good point. Good point. And then the woman that was with him, she was 32. She's 32.
Gosh, like
32, 35. What's the difference? 3 years? You're still the same.
It's like women over 35, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I just don't understand how a normal person with a normal thought process and some sort of critical thinking can listen to everything this man says and then turn around and say, he told women the truth, they just didn't want to hear him. He was the voice of... Someone even compared him to Martin Luther. Like, are you...
Yes, I've heard that.
Blasphemy.
No.
Like,
that's why I said it went back to this whole conspiracy theory of, oh, he had to be taken down. He was like the up-and-coming new Messiah. I was like, he's the what?
Messiah? Who? Who's Messiah?
Exactly. Like, who's really buying into all this?
And what happened? He died alone.
When he told women they were going to die alone. And let me tell you, said women were going to die alone.
Especially what was he saying? Women over 35 are more than likely to die alone and stuff.
Yes.
And I don't believe that woman with him is a nurse.
No, I don't think so either.
I heard the call and no.
No, I don't think
she didn't sound like she was doing any CPR. She didn't sound like a nurse. She threw out some buzzwords here or there. Maybe she took a CPR class, but I don't believe she was a nurse.
I don't think so. I think she could have been a woman of the night, like he said. Stick with the women of the night.
She didn't even know, because she said herself in the police report that she met him the night before and slept with them. Well, she didn't. Okay, she didn't say they had sex. She said she spent the night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but she didn't even know. She didn't even know the apartment number. Right there, that's dangerous.
I mean, listen, I'm not celebrating nobody's nothing. I mean, but the reality of it is, I really think that the men who've been left behind, first of all, like, and it's okay to be like, you know what, I used to believe in him, I used to see this, I used to think this, but now, like, seeing everything come out, my thought process has changed. There's nothing wrong with that. A wise man changes his mind. The problem though is when you get stuck on, when you hear something and you're like, well, whatever, at least he was this, trying to sweep things under the rug. You got to do the work, and it's okay to admit if you were wrong, but nobody has yet to explain to me something that is going to make any sense in my head for the stuff that he was saying. It just doesn't make sense. He always bashed the woman, always. Like, to me, I don't even think it was the delivery. Sometimes, I mean, it wasn't the delivery, just the delivery. It was the content, what he was saying, that just made sense.
Yeah, if he would have been a lot more civil, a lot more, like being a coach and a teacher and a mentor, you could still get that same message out. But without
here's my problem with this. If you are just bashing, there's two people in a relationship, there's a man and a woman, and you're hell-bent on it's the woman's fault, it's the woman's problem, the woman's the one who's wrong. Is that really, because there's no reality in which it's always going to be the woman's fault, just as much as there's no reality in which it's always going to be the man's fault. And I think that's where, like, again, our podcast, we talk about this, because guess what? There are good men out there, and there are women that cheat. There are women that break up the home. across the board, absolutely. So there's never a reality in which you can just decide that I'm going to be like against women. The only way, personally, I think that you can do that is if you yourself, that's how your reality has been, and therefore that's how your perception is, and that's the framework that you're building from. That's the only way. Because
But you know, I was watching one night, and even if I wanted to tell you the creator's name, I don't even know his name. But he admitted, and I think and I truly believe he didn't realize he admitted it. He was just answering a viewer's question. And he said, he was saying SBE, S as in Sam, B as in boy, E as in Edward, right? And the caller, it was a man caller, and he said, "What is SBE?" And he said, "Shaming, blaming, and explaining." And he said, the manosphere, that was their mantra, so that they will shame the women, blame the women, so that they could, what was his words? Oh, okay. So he said, so that the woman will accept the blame, because it was as if the woman was doing something wrong when in fact she wasn't.
So essentially their strategy was to manipulate women.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell me,
I know I
me
have it
how
in
that
an
is not
email.
problematic. That
Right.
is
Yes.
problematic. It's
Right.
very problematic.
Tricking. That was the word he used. He said we would trick women into doing what we want them to do, and we would trick them into acting the way we want them to act. Shame, blame, and explain.
Wow.
And I was like, what?
And these are the guys that claim that they're alpha males and they run stuff.
Yes.
And
Yes,
but
exactly.
it's all manipulation and mind games and
It's
everything else. And it's like a
you know?
guy that is a real man who's
Yes.
realistic, who has a good head on his shoulders, who doesn't
Yes.
need to play tricks on people, are the ones that they
Right.
turn around and call simps.
Exactly. Because a real man does not have to shame, blame in order to explain something so the woman can do what he wants. A real man does not have to manipulate a woman. Okay? They want a partner, an equal participant, equal willing participant. It's not about mind messing the other person. You know, that already is just.
And that's why they wanted women at home and not to have anything, because when something happens, the woman has nothing.
Exactly. So basically, let's go back to the time when the women stayed because they had nowhere to go. So that's why you're going to say women who are educated are problematic. Yeah, she's problematic because she has a job and she got an education which allowed her to have a job. She's independent. She has critical thinking. You can't blame and whatever her, because she has a brain of her own, you know?
And she has choices now.
And exactly. And she doesn't have to put up with your bullshit because she can walk away, you know? So a strong, independent woman becomes a problem for them because weak men like to weaken women. If you have to shame, blame, and what is that last one?
Explain.
If you have to shame, blame, and explain whatever that strategy is to a woman, that tells me you're not even a strong man. I don't want to use the word alpha, but a strong man would be able to have a conversation with a woman and agree on something and have like consensual, you know what I'm saying, like type of like relations as far as like everything, you know, like the relationship is kind of like mutual. But
that's exactly what he said. He said we have to trick. That was his exact words. We have to trick women.
Why do you have to trick them? Because you don't believe that there's any other way that you can get them to do anything or even adopt with you.
Right.
And of course, that means it also speaks to them being able to manipulate a certain type of woman.
Correct.
Who may, in the back of her mind, think that she can't do any better. Options are slim. Kind of feeding into the hype of men, black men. If you want a black man, he's either in jail, dead, or gay. And then, you at least got somebody, so let me just roll with his nonsense. That also reminds me of what I've actually heard this from more than one high value man when I watched their videos. And they talked about how what a woman has is not even on the table for them. It's not a concern for them at all. So she's educated, she's got a couple of kids, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
What their thing is that she's able to be a helpmate, basically, whatever that means for them.
Right.
And, you know, they're there to provide and do what they do as a man. So really, they just want a woman who's not afraid to be feminine so that they can be the provider as a man fully. And, you know, in a financial sense, they don't even care how much a woman has, you know, financially, because again, they're the provider. I also think it's very interesting that their mindset is completely different. Like Kevin Samuels seems to be all about giving this persona of having made it and achieved certain things, like, you know, I don't know, having the house and the kids and the fancy cars, when he lost it all and didn't have any of that stuff.
Exactly.
And then where high value men that actually have the money that he was talking about, their real wealth is in their choices. They're really the men that are spoiled for choice because they've got that mindset in which they know what kind of woman that they want. They know what kind of women they attract. They already know what kind of woman to avoid all by themselves. They don't need a Kevin Samuels to tell them. And then most importantly, their real power lies in the fact that they have time. They have the power of time. So they have the freedom to, you know, pursue a woman. They have the freedom to run their businesses. They've got the freedom, just money of a man with a money of a certain caliber has that freedom to do all these other things that people like Kevin Samuels was never able to do.